You're more honest with me than you are.
Stu, and I did want to sort of talk to you a little bit about Comic Sub. I don't think you remember me, but I used to be a customer of yours in Auckland, probably about 6 years ago, and I think I've since moved to Wellington, and or I would still be shopping at your store. But the sort of the last conversation that I had with you was, you were sort of developing Comics Hub, and it was sort of getting off the ground.
Yeah.
And then cut to, I'm reading an article about comics point of sales data, and Comics Hub is in 2,000 stores now across North America.
I wish I was in 2,000 stores. No, I'm nowhere near that. But
my information wrong. I thought
No, that's cool.
Sakana said that it was around a couple thousand. No.
Well, he can clear up the wrong information now for us, right?
So, Comic Hub is let's talk about the variants that we talked about earlier on. Okay, all those covers, and as a shop, how do you manage that? And then the whole idea of not just people placing orders for it, but how does that pollute your data for ordering the next part of it? So, as I said right at the start, my background originally was in software. So when I opened up the comic shop, I had probably come from the most advanced point of sale happening on the planet. Like, we were in Kmart down in Palmerston North. They ran a fashion parade. This is 30-something years ago. They had a fashion parade on a Tuesday night, and they turned over $250,000. That was the power of this program that we'd put in there. We had 1 in 3 penetration in Palmerston North for households. We were in a third of every house. So then I moved to the comic industry, and everyone's on pen and paper. And I was just like, what are you guys doing with this data? There's just so much information coming out, and we're not doing anything with it. And then you start getting all these emails from publishers saying, and I remember, I think it was one Friday, I got about 12 emails from different publishers saying, you need to order this by Sunday, and going through them and thinking, I've got no idea which of my customers want this. And then about 6 months later, I was at Comic-Con in San Diego, and DC had just royally screwed up their barcodes on the comics. And they no longer conform to international standards. And I'd even sent some covers down to the New Zealand arm of there's a global group that maintain barcode standards around the world. Every country has so. And I'd sent these off and said, look what's going on. And I paid some money to get a report back that said these barcodes are wrong. And so at this retailer forum in San Diego, there was the question and answer thing. And at the end of it, I caught up and said, hey, is anybody else having problem with DC's barcodes? They won't scan in my shop. And in front of 100 retailers, everyone just laughed at me. And I was like, wait, well, what are you guys using? And no one said anything. And then the woman from Diamond Comics, who had the monopoly then at that point, said, can you please raise your hand if you have a point of sale system in your shop? And it was me. I was the only person out of 100 retailers. This is about 20 years ago that actually had point of sale. And I was like, how are you tracking information? Like, what are you doing? This is insane. So I then decided, well, I need to expand my product to do more of what I was using for what I'd done for Kmart. I wanted some of those tools accessible to me in store, and I thought, okay, I'll do this myself. I'll write my own program. And I hadn't written software in 15 years, so I had to go buy some textbooks and teach myself, I think, 5 different software languages over 2 or 3 years. And in the end, I had a pretty cool program in our shop that was making us, making our ordering really good and helping us a lot. And then we got nominated for the Eisner Award, which is the best retailer in the world award. We got into the top 5. So I had to go back to San Diego and submit my application for that. And part of the application included the software product that I'd written for myself for my shop. And we didn't win the Eisner, but afterwards I had a few retailers come up and like, hey man, sorry you didn't win, but will you license that software? And I was like, I don't, maybe not. And so I talked to my wife Sue and said, what do you think? And she's like, let's do it. And I said, look, if we're going to do this, I'm not doing it. I can't, I haven't written commercial software in over 15 years. We need to get something sorted. So I went to India, incorporated a company in Jaipur. I've got, some guys are going to be Skyping me after this tonight. And so we've got half a dozen full-time developers who've been working for us in Jaipur on this for now 6-7 years, and about 4 contractors. And basically, what you were talking about before, we're a solutions for the industry. So everyone who is a customer in my store has a Comic Hub account. So they log in and they see what's coming up, and then they submit their orders. So all our variant orders that we place in the shop, 90% are pre-ordered. I'm not taking a guess on that at all. I know exactly what's going on. There's an opportunity for publishers to put preview pages in there, so they can put 4 or 5 pages up, which then helps customers take a look and read it. We are very close to launching a Kickstarter add-on, which means, at the moment, your situation with Kickstarter is you can only appeal to the people that whereas our tools are going to say, well, look, I'm in these, I think we're in about 150 shops. We are in the United States, Canada, South Korea, Ireland, Portugal, and Sweden at the moment. So we can expand the reach for anybody else who's trying to sell comics if you're doing a retailer, deal for your particular product. So, and then it pushes back to, various industry people, sell-through data. So we're reporting information back to the industry on what's going on. And Sue and I are heading up to Pittsburgh on Sunday week, where we are the Comic Hub is one of the premium sponsors of Comics Pro, which is an industry event where we will be pitching to the industry and saying, this is how all these tools work. I am a shocking perfectionist. There's a problem I have, and even though I've been doing this for years, this is probably the longest any product has been in beta. A lot of our clients are like, "Why aren't you pushing this hard?" I'm like, "Oh, there's that T's the wrong font, or not quite that level, but it's got to be right, and it is right."
Right.
So we are going to be making a lot of noise. I've got a lot of advertising credits built up, and so over the next 4 to 5 months, if you are anything to do with comics, you are going to get sick of hearing about me.
Well, I mean,
and it's also there's also just a general kind of it's an app, right? So just for a general consumer.
So
is that part 2?
It's the heart of it. The heart of it is a point of sale system for retailers,
right?
And then so the hub data is stores. So each store then basically says to all of their customers, there's an Android and iPhone app for this, and there's a website, and and it also helps stores with cash flow, because as soon as product arrives and you say, hey, we've done this week's shipment's been processed, and if you can't get in, you can just log into your account and pay us. So we don't get tied up, which has been a killer for a lot of comic shops, is people placing orders for things ongoing, being a customer for 5 years, and then just ghosting the shop, and the shop not knowing when to stop putting stuff aside. And next thing you know, you can very quickly, if you've got a customer who comes in every 3 weeks, and all of a sudden they don't come in for 8 weeks, by the time you realize they're not coming in, you've already ordered 2 months more comics. So you can actually be burnt for easily 16 weeks worth of books, and it can really hurt you as a shop and cash flow wise. And for us, though, the flip side is, I can sell Slaughterhouse 5 any day of the week, right? If you come into the shop, guys, I will give you my blurb, and I will tell you why you should have it, and you will buy it, right? It's as simple as that. You can't not want this particular comic. But yeah, the other part to it is so comic shop owners, we're really good at selling what we like and what we know. But Ultimate Spider-Man #1, I don't know how far into the interview we are here. I'm confessing this, guys. I'm kind of happily putting my hand up. I've had a comic shop for 30 years. I've been reading comics for 45. Ultimate Spider-Man #1 is the first Spider-Man comic I have ever finished. I have never read a Spider-Man
Ooh.
comic in my life. I have
Yeah, it's
loved all the
all-
movies.
No,
But every
yeah.
time I've gone to read a Spider-Man comic, I just get 10 pages into it. And I'm like, I don't care about this teenager. I can't read it. I thought the Into the Spider-Verse Miles Morales stuff was just genius. So
Yeah.
what Comic Hub does is it basically says, hey man, I like to talk to you about comics as a customer. I want to sell you comics as a customer, but I'm not going to be so arrogant that I know what you want. I'm going to give you the tools so you can tell me, and then we'll do it that way. So there's a point of sale, there's customer tools. Each store gets a fully automated website, which aggregates up to that comichub.com that you just put online there. Because one of the things for retail that's really important is you have to have an online presence. It's 2024. There's no denying that. But it can't cost you payroll, right? As a store, you cannot be spending money on loading your weekly comics to the internet. That whole thing has to be 100% automated. So Comic Hub manages all of that for our clients. The only thing they do add is what you're looking at there is back issues. So we've just recently added a feature where we've got about 350,000 back issues that stores can load up quickly and easily and get them onto the system as well. So we're basically finding the problems that the industry has and then solving them.
So I got a question about the back issues, right?
Yeah.
Now, I forgot your wife's name.
Sue and Stu. Keep it easy.
Right.
Man. Yeah.
Stu put up here that and you also said that, but for those who are just joining us, US, Ireland, Portugal, Sweden, and South Korea. Doesn't have New Zealand on there. Now this is the question. Say if there's a comic on Comic Hub and I want it in New Zealand, how does it get to me without the extra fees?
Well, you're buying off a shop is basically it, if it's a back issue like that. So again, that's something that some of our clients asked last year. Stu, I want to sell into New Zealand. So we've gone and investigated the USPS international shipping app, and we built that tool out. Like I said, we've got basically 10 full-time developers, and as soon as a problem comes up, we talk about it and solve it and put it out there and just keep moving.
So if I'm buying from a store, say like in Ireland, and I get it comes to your store, then I get it from you, or does it come?
No. If you're buying from Comic Hub for back issues, you are buying from the shop. But if you're using the app or the website, the customer website, there's customer.comichub.com, there's retailer.comichub.com, and there's comichub.com. If you're using customer, you are actually linked to my shop only. You have an account with Heroes for Sale, and you will only see the stock that's in my store, and you will be placing orders with us only. So now that we've just finished doing a prepaid tool. So Penguin Random House, who is the biggest distributor in the world, I think, of books, who is also the supplier of IDW, Dark Horse, and Marvel. We're in the middle, of making everything in their warehouse. There's like 125,000 line items in their warehouses, and they are all going to be live on our client websites in the US on Monday.
So in the past, when I was down in Invercargill in 2002 or something, and I just found out that Rising Stars was being written by Babylon 5 writer, right? I didn't even know he'd write comics. So I was able to get a couple, and then the store there was able to source other stuff at probably like about a couple bucks extra, right? Because of all the work, but it got sent to them. Is this going to be the same case if there's something online here, I look at Comic Hub and go, oh, I want that comic, but it's sitting in Ireland. And my question then is, when it comes, like you said, it comes to me, but am I just getting like just doing a shop from there, like just an online shop?
Yeah.
Because
so if you click on any of those items there, so click on Spawn number 8, just for giggles.
I think you have that.
Right, and then you click available at.
Right. So you go available at.
Right.
Okay.
And so now you can price compare the various stores that have got it, and then if you click on one of those for available, right?
Let me just pop that onto our screen. Give me 1 sec.
Did it spawn another?
One change.
Oh, that's cool, Stu. So
you've been taken to Downtown Comics.
Yeah, here we are. So here we are now. Tells you the quality of it.
Right.
Tells you $10. Now, if I add to cart, right?
You
Of course, I
are
need to sign up and stuff.
you've got to create an account with Downtown
Sure.
Comics in Indianapolis.
Right. So then it's directly buying for them, which is kind of going to cost like what, $30 for postage anyway.
Yeah.
So do you kind of like? I'm just trying to make like cheaper freight, right? So is there any way like you do like a monthly purchase yourself for the store of certain books that you want to bring in from downtown, and I can say, hey, can I take that? Can you add this one to it, and we'll get that come across.
I mean,
and pay up front.
I think that's going to be something that we as Heroes for Sale will we can possibly do that. But the other thing that we're now doing, because we now have this back issue tool, we are now buying collections off people. So
Right.
for a long time, I haven't got into the back issue market because if you can't get it online, you're missing 30% of the market, right? It's great that people are coming in the shop and buying back issues, but you've got to get it online to actually to complete retail in 2024. Now, in the past, I would have had to have gone and found that image, found a description, loaded it into my point of sale, made a unique item, added the dimensions and all that sort of stuff, and loaded it. So it would potentially take me 10 minutes to grade and do that whole thing for that one single comic. Now, the tools that we've got in Comic Hub, where we've got, I think it's 363,000 back issues loaded onto the website now.
Takes time, man.
And I can say Spawn. And if I've got a collection of somebody and it's got 50 Spawn comics in it, all I do at first is I find the Spawn range, and then I go number 8, 8 point, grade at 7.5, $12. Done.
Yeah.
Image, the whole lot, loaded, number 6. So I've gone from doing one comic in 10, 12 minutes to doing 3 or 4 comics a minute. So that's one of the solutions that we've added and is growing fast in that area.
So talking about grading, right? While we're just here on that, recently there's been this huge thing with CGC stuff. Do you guys actually sell CGC books?
Don't touch it.
The reason I ask that is because like this is my one and only CGC.
I'm out. Nah.
Yeah.
Not having a thing to do with it.
That's cool. Okay, we won't talk about that. But here's Stephen goes, that's pretty excellent. And at the moment, why I asked about the questions about the freight issues and stuff, and it's made me actually rethink about what we put out ourselves for Kickstarter. So, going forward, until I get to my 4th issue, all our printed comics are only going to be available in the UK. In Canada and the US, because it's it's easier for me to let it sell there, because that's where my publisher is, into that country. And then later, when I get to 4th issue, we release everything, and then we can go 4 issues for you guys at a cheaper rate.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the product, but Comic Hub is like designed to find like
Comic Hub. There's no S.
Comic. Oh, sorry, Comic Hub. My apologies. My apologies.
It's cool.
It's designed to sort of find like a retailer near you, right, with the product that you're after, as opposed to ordering it online, right? It's a direct.
It gives brick and mortar retail comic shops the power of big box stores, while at the same time we are looking to decentralize the Amazon and that beast.
Yeah,
and that's this new tool we've got, where we've got all of Penguin Random House's in stock items. So when Comic Hub is one of the reasons we're going up to Pittsburgh, is there's going to be other distributors there, and we'll be saying, what's in your warehouse? Do you want it on 150 comic shop websites for people to be able to order direct? So it's that gap of you don't know what's there, and also, if you look at you guys talking about manga, well, the whole light novels, that secondary market that's coming out of light novels is something that as a shop we're looking at going, these are starting to sell, and I'm terrified. I got no idea what I want to order here. Am I going to lose all the money I make on Batman? Am I going to lose on a bunch of manga light novels? So, as a retailer, I'm scared of it. I don't understand the product. But if I can put it on my website, and you're someone who's coming into the store, you're fine. Publisher, there's a monthly fee, right? It's you pay $100 a month US, that which gives you access to sell through data. It gives you the ability to promote your product with preview pages, and then you pay 2% of the orders taken for that book, but the $100 is a credit. So until Comic Hub actually starts to make you some decent money out of it, until the actual commission is more than $100, you never pay more than $100. But if you're a small publisher only doing, a couple of books a year, then we're kind of like, okay, $100 a year. Let's not be silly about it. So,
Perfect.
yeah,
that's cool. There's some real interesting points about Comic Hub in the chat about sort of its functionality and what have you, which
Sue's
could be
going about nuts
highlighted.
out there. Yeah.
No, that's cool, Sue. That's Sue, was it? Good stuff, Sue. Good stuff.
I can't type this at the same time.
No, fair enough. That makes sense. That's cool.
So we've got about another 15 minutes, and everybody can find out what that's about as well. It's online. All the information's there on comichub.com. Now I want to close off us here for because try to keep it within 2 hours. Martin Emmons, do you want to talk a bit about that and his influence? What was he like? Because we did a show earlier on and talked about his work.
So how I met Martin in itself is, I guess, a little bit of a story. I was owed some money, right, by somebody who had a piece of artwork, and I wanted that piece of artwork. It was a really cool picture, a slain picture, and this person owed me money, and in the end he said, "Hey, do you want that art?" I was like, "Yeah, cool, I'll take that. That's a fair swap." And then a couple of weeks later, he says, "Oh, you can't tell anyone you've got that. I've put it in as an insurance claim." And I was like, great. I've now stolen art. So then I opened up my comic shop, and like, what do I want to put on the wall was this piece, and so it really conflicted. And anyway, so one day this guy walks into the shop, and he's on his phone, and he's walking around the shop, and he's clearly industry because he's talking about editors and covers, and he's picking up comics and stuff and blah blah blah. And he comes up to the counter, and I said, "Are you Martin Emmons?" Because of the way he was talking. Incidentally, I went to school with,
Really?
With Martin went to James Cook. I went to school with the guy I was just talking to. He was a year behind me at school, Simon Morse. And he said, "No, I share a studio with Martin." And I said, "I've got something in Martin's." And he said, "Is it the Bisley?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he just got on the phone and rang Martin straight away. Martin was in a studio in LA. And he says, "I'm in a comic shop in South Auckland, go Pipitoe, and the guy here, he's got your piece of art." And so I spoke to him on the phone, and I said to him, "Look, this is awkward, man, but I was owed quite a bit of money, but obviously I can't sell you your art, but I'm a huge fan of your work. I think it's just brilliant. Any chance, would you swap? Would you give me a piece of your art for this?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, fuck yeah, no worries." So that happened. So about a month later, Martin lands at Auckland Airport and came straight to the shop. He didn't go, it was like, "How you doing?" And we became mates because of, I guess that's how we met, was me returning. And he said to me a couple of years later, he goes, "I knew it would turn up." He said, "I was never worried about it. It was too hot, and the New Zealand market's too small for that piece to not be returned." So it was Simon Bisley's Slain the Horn God. The Lord wears slough.
The greatest comic
does the dance for the dance of the dead. The scene, the pink background. So I had So then we became mates, and then Martin. I remember talking to him a few years later. I was like, "Mate, why did you stop doing comics? I mean, his stuff he did for DC and all that, I just freaking loved it." And he said, "The industry wants your fastest work, not your best." And straight away I was just like, man, how much respect could you have for that? Like he basically said, "I'm better than the comic industry, and I know it, but I'm being polite, and I was like, you're right. So that was why he then got into all the sort of the tattoo work and the design work, because he was able to then take his time. And then we were talking one I think it was the Anzac Day, we had lunch together, and he said, we were talking about White Trash, and I said, why don't you are you ever going to republish it? And he said, oh, do you want to? And I was like, what? He goes, do you want to republish it? And I had no idea what publishing was involved. But I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And then it just became a nightmare, man. Like he didn't have I had to get all the pages scanned and and for me, I lost sight of the fact that Martin hadn't done any commercial work for years. So when we actually went and actually had it printed, like 90% of my customers were like, who's Martin Emond?
Right.
And I was like, okay. And so then we printed this book. I was out of the country at the time. There was a cock up in the art stock. My sister was having a baby in London, so I'd gone to be with her. The book was delayed. And then it just didn't sell because the industry had moved on from Martin, regardless of what we wanted to say. So I printed 5,000 copies thinking this is going to be easy. And I think on the first run, we sold 1,800. And then with the cost of actually doing it, and then obviously, the tragedy of his suicide. And I remember there was this idea that we were going to take his artwork and use the funds to support youth, in mental health. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm already 18 grand behind. We've got 3,000 copies of this to get through. I'm on a loss. This thing is so. Martin was a beautiful man. He was a great friend, and at the end of it, I didn't know what I was doing as a publisher. I got enough of that wrong, and I freely admit that now. And in the end, so he had illicit, which I don't know the exact legal setup, but I think his estate might have had a part ownership in that.
Right.
And I just said, look, and I just gave them the 2,500 copies that I think I had 2,800 copies left by that stage, or 80. Yeah. I gave them like 80% or 90% of the books that were left, and I kept like 200 to try and get some money back. And in the end,
Do you have a copy of one?
Yeah, I've got about 20 left. My
want one.
accountant. Sure.
I've been trying to look everywhere for one. Please, I want one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Sue, comment. Do we have White Trash? I'm sure we've got. I think
Sue,
we've got like one box.
Please put one
box
aside
of
with my
20
name
left.
on it.
Yeah.
Send me a bank account. Stu's got my Facebook.
I didn't know, Stu, you sort of had a hand in kind of reviving it. So because when we did our quick episode on Martin Emond's, Aru sort of said I want to do an episode on Martin Emond's. I'd never heard of him. I'd seen White Trash, I think, on your stands. So, but I couldn't find a copy in Graphic here in Wellington. But but I did buy a copy on Comixology or Kindle, or whatever it's called now. So you had a hand in sort of digitizing that work. I mean, so I
did the whole lot. I went and took a huge loan.
Wow.
Had it digitized, printed in New Zealand. I mean, I made so many mistakes. I should have had it printed in the US and warehoused it. So here I was with 5,000 copies in New Zealand that I'm shipping up to the States every time I got a purchase order. So I was starstruck when he said, will you do this? And I should have said no. But like I said, he's a mate. We hang out with, and I guess he just, I don't know. I'm slightly honored that he thought I could do it. The worst part of it was because of how we met for the whole got you your art back. I think he thought he was doing me a favor. And I think at the time, I was just so excited to be a part of it that I never actually, paid attention to the fact that publishing is a skill and it's something I've never done in my life and I've got no idea what I'm doing, and you want to try and digitize this book, print it in New Zealand and sell it around the world. Dude. Yeah. I should have said no at the time, but I just and Martin's awesome.
That's so cool, still. I don't think we realized how close you were. So it was it was cool.
19 now. She only is 19 now. right?
Right.
You guys, like Sue, it's answering your question. Yeah, statement. You only have 19 now because the bank,
Okay.
you know, it's done on
Sure.
one's mind.
Sure. And the
But
other thing, I mean, even the printing, it wasn't the greatest binding. Like it just everything went wrong with it. And I think of everything I've done in business in my life. It's probably the thing that I don't know. I think I'm ashamed of it, but I'm embarrassed by it. I made so many mistakes for someone that I really cared about and liked, and I fucked it up.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, look, at least it's out, right? That's the one of the things. It's at least it's out, it's here, and
Yeah.
people can
Yeah.
enjoy it. And you know,
Yeah.
like I said, I'd love to see. You know, I mean, I want a piece of it because it's New Zealand history,
Yeah.
and it's New Zealand artists. You know, who was with us for a short time, but did so much. I mean, I interviewed an artist who works with us at Rising Sun Comics, right? And he worked on a book, and I was like, looked at because I was interviewing him, I was looked at his work, and I went, is this influenced by Moto Emons? American guy. He goes, yeah. I said, yeah, he's one of us. You know, and we looked at him and we talked about that. And like, because his influence, like, and also the Horn God, I had the coffee table, whatever, trade paperback at that time. And this is like about 90, shit, most people like 94, 93, I had that, you know, and it was one of my treasures, like, because I actually painted Slane going into hell, like when he goes through the water, actually this big, because I love that book so much, you know, and like acrylic, like painted, because I used to paint. I don't paint anymore, but real painting, and I was like so admired, you know, that's how much influence I felt for that, right?
Yeah.
And so when I don't know what had happened, but my whole thing came in with like the whole pink thing, and I was like, dude, what the? And then that's why I thought, like, well, if we're going to talk about Kiwis, then we need to bring him up, and then we've had and Sang come on. We've had like Dallin Herox come in last year, and I'm hoping that more people will come on, because look, this is just to highlight the great comic creators in New Zealand, right? In Whangarei, Auckland, Wellington. We had Jason Lenny on last week,
and retailers.
And retailers and event runners as well, because I think it's all hand in hand, because a lot of kids don't get to the comic store, but they can get to the events going on, right?
Yeah.
And they can go to the store, and then they can carry on from the store and come back. Oh, there's something else, and it's a really cool way. And especially the other thing is that creators need to get into stores. Creators need to get into events and push their work to make it easier for retailers to push their work, get their name out. And that's something that we're talking about today with Tom Hutchison's, about people just being too shy and not getting their work out. Have you dealt with that? Sorry.
I think one of the hardest things is if you have a creator and it's crickets, that's hard, right? So you got to be really, really careful, and you got to market it properly. And I remember one retailer guy, Tate from Tate's Comics in Florida. The best advice I've ever got about having an event in your store is, if nobody turns up, don't worry about it, because nobody knew. So if you have a flop, no one knew it was a flop because no one showed up. So just get on with it, move on with the next one.
Okay.
And that's okay. That's one way of looking at it. But the other side is, if you actually bring a creator in and it doesn't hit, then that's hard. We've never had it as a problem. I've brought a few artists down from the Philippines. I've had we had the guy from Razorblade. I could hit send receive on the email. There's this guy from me. Hey, I'm going to be in New Zealand in 3 weeks. Come into your shop and do sketches and signings if you want. And I'm like, sure. And it was just gangbusters, like just all day long. It was a sad day up on K Road there. It worked really well. So I love doing that. I love the event side of it. But I don't know if I'll do it in this space. In
Newmarket?
The shop we're currently in right now. So just going back to what we talked about right at the start, just before COVID. So we were actually, my wife and I and my youngest daughter, we were about to move to India for a year to be with our development team for Comic Hub. So we had actually moved to we'd cleared out everything from our apartment. We'd moved to my sister's farm. The world shut down 12 hours before we were due to leave. So we come out of COVID 6 weeks after that huge lockdown. We were homeless. Our landlord up on K Road was just like a complete jerk after the roadworks. So we essentially didn't have a space for the business either. So we bailed to this space in Newmarket, which was upstairs because it had personal accommodation as well. But we're now ready to move out of here into something that is proper retail. And once we're in that space, we will do events. We will get back onto having people in the shop. It's something we really enjoy. Yeah.
I still remember. I think was it Harvey Talabau?
Harvey Tolabau. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was fantastic, man. Yeah.
I remember
Steven
that.
Segovia. Yeah.
I'm remembering Stephen. Right. Yeah, Steve. I remember you. That was the first time I'd sort of him. My experience with an artist in the store.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, who is this guy going to be? He's just going to. I went in and he's some, just absolute ace doing Wolverine. It was like, flipping it. This is unreal. So I remember handing him a couple of sketches of mine and him giving feedback. It was just incredible. Yeah. No, having those artists in there is so cool.
We would have kept doing that, and because what we were doing is we were flying in an artist for Armageddon. So we were saying to the people at Armageddon, you give me a space and I'll bring in a superstar artist to put on the billing. And so they did that for 3, and then we were looking at the 4th one and we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And they turned around and said, oh no, you need to pay $2,500 for the space for the artist. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm going to bring you an American creator that's going to bring in a couple of thousand people to your show, and you want to charge me for them to be there? And he goes, oh, well, you're going to make more, it's going to be for your shop. And I said, you know what? I'm going to bring in an artist and just bring him to my shop. See you, man. Yeah. I haven't been back to Armageddon since. It's like, that's a joke.
Yeah, I remember you saying something like that. Yeah, and when Stephen was in there, it was packed. The little table there was just, it was incredible. Yeah, great artist.
Yeah,
awesome.
Cool.
All righty.
Okay, I was just showing you like events and stuff, photos, like having people going to it and seeing something like that, like just little community things. And I think a lot of and like we were talking about events, people going to events and promoting that on here as well. Like we want people to go to these events. And we're going to talk more about that in the after show after we finish here. Rex, do you have any questions? Otherwise, we'll go to words of wisdom.
Oh no, Stu. I mean, I wish I could. I wish this was a 6-hour show, Stu. But I know you. I know you're a busy man. I just want to thank you for coming on. Even though you don't remember me, your store in K Road was a big part of my 20s, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to interview you and get your insight. You're super intelligent, super charismatic guy, and I just thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's kind words. Thank you.
No
I
worries.
remember
I'm sure if I saw you in
face,
I'm sure if I see you in face, I'll remember you.
I've grown out my hair and I've put on about 20 kilos. I don't blame you.
Oh, you're that Rex. Okay, now I got it.
You're that guy. Words of wisdom.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure.
I guess, what can I say? I've been privileged to have a position in comics in New Zealand, and I've recognized that. So I've tried to, and seen the power of what comics and imagination does for people in all walks of life. And because of our position, I've been able to take that to schools and libraries, and to teach it and teach comics in schools as well. And what I've learned from it all is, people want to be engaged with other people as a big part of it. So, and even though we're in retail, we know most of our customers. Sorry, Rex. When they come in, we're chatting with them. And if you can get yourself somewhere, if you can get to a position in life where you can just hang out with like-minded people, then you've made it. Is all I can really really say about that. When you get to just talk about your passion continuously and be involved in that, that's, yeah, make, you know, it sounds corny, follow your dreams, whatever. It doesn't have to, your dream doesn't have to be huge for it to be something that you really, really enjoy, you know. And we get that with our customers. Some of the guys who, you know, landscape gardeners, and they read comics, but their passion for landscape gardening is evident. The people that we meet in our store who have something outside of comics are probably sometimes the more interesting. It's cool to talk about comics. It's cool to talk about other things that you're involved in as well. And I've really enjoyed that part of it. I don't know if I'm getting this part of the show right. I think
You're
I'm good
doing
at
great. You're
answering
doing
questions. I've enjoyed every part of it. I've managed to, you know, I get to travel a lot because of comics. It's taken us to, you know, we've got our own IT company in India, which was something that I think being involved in comics let me do. I think if I had a pizza shop and, you know, the next step for the pizza shop was going to India to open up an IT company, I don't know if I would have, but the imagination and that drive that comes with comics, the idea of, yeah, if we do this, what if I do this, has really helped. So comics expand your imagination. And if you're sort of, whatever reason you're on the fence of this, if you do just look at the covers, then start talking to some people to find what content you'll like inside, because the more stories you consume, the more your imagination will grow, the more interesting you will be as a person and more likable to other people. And I think comics has made me likable. I'll go with that. How's that?
Yeah. Very well done.
It's cool. So I've got this from Stephen, and he's probably, you know,
Steve,
met you recently. The last time I saw you was about 2007. So or near that. Now, the other thing here is like this part is really, really important. And I remember like when I was doing research, when I opened up the store, our store here from around 2014, it really was this. It became a community hub for people who were into trading cards, manga,
yeah,
into gaming, D&D and stuff. And it was like, it became that way. And the weird thing is like those 20% of the store that stayed behind and helped and, you know, became part of it, they ended up running events, D&D events,
yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh events, trading card events. And also then when we closed the store about 18 months later or something, something like that, maybe less than that, they carried on in their groups because their group that they created, that you know, the relationships, interpersonal relationships they created with each other, you know, and these are guys, right? School kids, adult guys, and they basically were able to mentor the older ones, were able to mentor younger ones. And in that time, over the like 2014, almost 10 years ago, right? Because that's like a decade of people. And so now they actually have our own store, but also now that's actually everybody's gaming there now, right? And that community has even grown. So in the last 5 years when I was running my convention, they were part of that convention and helped me run it. Some of the key people that came from that community in that store to do that. And I think that's, sometimes people forget the importance of having something like a store, right? And they think it's only about retail. And I think comics are very different. It's not like a freaking clothing store, right? It's like a, you know, it's like conversation. You're in there for hours and talking. And I'm sure, you know, Rex has been in the situation where he's been in comic stores and talked for hours, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the one thing I was going to say, I think the unique thing about Heroes for Sale, not to open up another can of worms at the end of the show, but you know, I think Heroes for Sale sort of for a comic store had this sort of element of wholesomeness, which I think is missing in a lot of comic stores. Like, I don't want to sort of put down other stores, but you know, it's sort of like a hole in the wall type deal, you know, when you go to store and you're gonna grab a comic, you know. But there was, you know, there's families and stuff running around in Heroes for Sale, and I don't think I've experienced that sort of thing since.
If anyone listening, if you are considering opening a comic or a game store, when you do your fit out and when you do your layout, make sure when it's all finished, you've got an extra $3 or $4 grand in your back pocket and go and spend it on lighting.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
the advice I will give you. Okay, your shop must be bright now, and if you think
Yeah.
if dark blue is your favorite color, do not put it on the walls. Okay, your walls need to be white. And you need to have solid lighting. That's all
Yeah.
I'm going to say on that. That's my only advice to anyone opening up a shop. And I think that
it's got
hits
to smell
exactly what
nice.
you're talking about, Rex.
Yeah.
It's got to be inviting. And I remember being in London with my niece. She was about 15, and we went to about 3 or 4 comic shops in London. And I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "Uncle Stu, your shop pisses all over them." I was like, "What?
Yeah.
We're in London." She goes, they're just dark and dingy boys
Yeah.
stores, and I would never go into any of them. But I love taking my friends into your shop because it's nice and bright. And I was
I remember going to
Yeah.
Hawaii, and I'm like, oh, I'll go to my first American comic book store, and go and and I'd gone to yours, spent probably 5 years as a customer there. Went in, I was like, Jesus, this is like it's like a hoarder who lives here or something.
Yeah.
It's just you're stepping over piles of stuff, things are dusty, sun damaged,
There's a body outline on the floor somewhere that they haven't removed.
Get me out, pick something out, get me out of here. But no, I mean, that's the last sort of piece that I'll say is that it is a unique sort of place, and I think it is a family business, so that sort of shines through. So yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing is, like, if you are going to open a store, look at the best stores. Right?
Yeah.
Look at the best stores.
Look at
the
Heroes
ones
for
that
Sale.
are doing really well.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I'd say that
you
there's some shops that you go into and you're like, and for me it's a hobby. I walk into any space. It doesn't have to be a comic shop, and I just like, this is an $80,000 fit out. Like, it's just something I do. I look at the fittings, I look at the lighting, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's what I said. Keep 3 or 4 back for the lighting. You can still fit a shop out for $5,000. You can get secondhand furniture. You can do all that, but then you've got to light it still. And that will also then highlight to you some of your shoddier cabinetry that you shouldn't have picked up for $5. You should have said, "Nah, I'm not putting that in my shop." Anyway, I've digressed.
Just in finishing, I want to show you my friend's store. These are guys that, like, it's kind of like a franchise thing, but like they fit it out themselves. So it's I always forget the name of it. I always call it something else. But it's a gaming store. So let me see if I can find any interior work, and I'll show you. When we did our, like when I was talking about like research, I actually spent a year researching the best comic stores in the world, right? Before I basically decided to open one up. And so, it's a gaming store. So at the back, you got all those tables, and you're right. The lighting, it looks so bright, right? And stuff. And that's Ethan. That's one of my best mates. He's the one who's one of the co-owners. There's 3 of them there, and it's always filled out whenever they have their events. And it's just, anybody can go in, right, and feel welcome. And one of the things, like, we're talking about smells, right? Females are very, if your place smells like toe jams and, armpits and, bad breath, nobody's going to like it, man. They're going to leave, dude. And you've lost customers. And mom and dad are like going to bring their kids in, and you got like a poster on the wall of a naked lady or topless, whatever. They're going to like, okay, kids, we're going elsewhere. And you've lost customers. You've lost a whole family of customers. And if child goes, if you get a kid to read young age, 5, whatever, he's going to be at 10, at 15, and 40, whatever, right? Like me, right? From 8 to now at 50, I'm still reading comics and now creating. But that's enough from me. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to, I'll just say farewells and just and then we'll get back into it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Rex, for co-hosting. Appreciate it, man. And thank you, Stu, for taking your time out and like spending a Friday night with us, right? I'm sure you could be out there with Stu having dinner somewhere and lovely meal at the various, restaurants in Auckland. But I do appreciate what you brought tonight. And I think we covered pretty cool things. We didn't talk a lot about emotes, but I think the 2 things that we covered really are needed right now in the comic industry, which is comic store, what is happening there, and the other thing I should have added, part of that is a creative side. And if you guys are watching this on replay, do watch the entire thing, but especially the earlier stuff with because it's been almost like a two-part thing, the creative side on why comic stores are, expect what they expect from you as a creator. Because if you're going to get into a partnership to get your comic into the store, you got to do the other part of it as well and give them good books and make sure they're out on time and stuff. And the same thing when we're producing stuff, we got to do the same thing ourselves. The other side of that is like, don't expect them just to do it because you're from the same country, right? Because they got to make a living. They got to pay the bills. It's like, I remember like people were buying comics and never came back. They made me order shit and they never came back. And I had, hundreds and hundreds of dollars of back orders that never got sold and then like I had to close down shop because I just couldn't handle that. And they're like, oh, we'll be there. Bring it in. That also comes on the readers as well, right? Because you got to understand people are trying to make a living. And I think it's, as much as we can talk about and harp about that, but it is like, how would you like to be treated if somebody came to your home and then took the meal away with them, brought you meal, and then took the meal back with them? It's like taking beer to a mate's party and taking that beer away again. It's not a good feeling. So don't make promises you can't keep, especially with stores and retail, especially with comic stores, right? The way things are going. Also, the second part of that was Comic Hubs, right? It's comichubs.com. Check it out. If you like a publisher or a store, get involved with it, because I think it's interesting. For me, it's interesting because I'm part of a bigger publisher, which means that I will be interested in those guys, kind of like getting involved, getting the books out everywhere, because I'd rather have a world audience than a local audience. And I think you should, as a creator, would also want, and a publisher would also want, not just your little community here, but through your country, through your city, across the world, because the world is a global stage now for comics. And people are hungry for stories. If they wouldn't be freaking spending billions of dollars on manga, that reads backwards, right? Right to left, right? And bottom to, the other on an angle, which I read and I enjoy. But people are looking for good entertainment. So be a good writer, test yourself, ask people if it's good or not, and get good artists or whatever art you do get. Work hard at it, man. Because I think for all of us out here, we just want to create and tell our great stories. And that's one thing I really appreciate about what Stu said was great stories, right? And it's at the end of the day, it's your story. Nobody's going to force you to tell anything else. But if you want it out there, it's going to be able to be marketed to a certain audience and a certain way.
And I've been waiting for the noise to die down, so I could have some time to think back to when I wanted to be where I am now. Free of problems I had then, but taken up by more now.